Welcome to the Travel Squad podcast, where adventure meets inspiration. We're your hosts. I'm Brittany.
I'm Kim.
And I'm Jamal. Together we explore international destinations, hike epic national parks, and share unforgettable travel experiences with you, one passport stamp at a time.
Our mission is to inspire you to travel by showing you how you can make it work no matter your budget, schedule, or experience level.
We bring you along so that you can laugh, get excited, and start planning your own trip.
So grab your ticket and your passport.
And don't forget your travel insurance.
And get ready to embark on a new adventure with us around the globe.
Hello, fellow travelers.
Hey, squad.
Hey, squaddies.
Welcome to this week's episode of the Travel Squad podcast. In today's episode, we are giving you our annual travel year recap. So this is our travel recap for the year 2023.
2023 was a pretty good year for travel. I went to a few cool places. I also had a lot of friends actually come into Austin, so I spent a few different weekends exploring my own backyard. And I'm pretty satisfied with all that I accomplished this year. How about you guys?
Yeah, it's been a very successful travel year for us. And one thing that we didn't mention at the start of this episode is we're also going to be talking about what we're expecting for 2024. Things that we have planned trip-wise, things that we have planned for the podcast. And we're really excited to share all of that information with you.
And it's a lot, guys. Like 2024 is booked.
I know. I literally have pretty much something every single month in 2024.
I was just telling somebody today exactly what we were doing in 2024 because they had asked. It wasn't any bragging, just, simple conversation. And they were just like, oh my gosh. And I'm just like, yeah, I didn't even tell you what we have sprinkled in probably for like little weekend getaways. Those were just like the big international trips and stuff like that. And when we have these episodes, I just want to say this isn't in any way to brag or talk about, oh, we did this, we did that. At the very start of our podcast, and we still touch upon it, but we hit upon it more at the very beginning of our podcast. Our goal was really to inspire people to travel and let them know that it's possible. And if you just set your mind to the fact, like, I'm going to do these things and make it a priority, you can do it. So when we're in this episode here talking about all that we did, it's meant to be like as an inspiration because we dedicated ourselves to be like, yes, we're going to make this happen and we're going to do this.
And I also want to note that we aren't full-time podcast creators, content creators, and we all do work, normal jobs, full-time jobs. And so it is possible to use your PTO, those long extra weekends that you have, and any other sorts of benefits that you get during vacation time or holidays to book these trips. And so we are just your normal average people just trying to live life at its fullest and book as many trips as we can every year.
One thing that I'm going to try to do a little bit more of this year is to maximize vacation time. And my company has unlimited PTO, so it's not the worst thing if I take the PTO, but there's kind of like this unwritten rule that it shouldn't be more than 4 weeks. So I usually try to stay around there. But this year I want to bank on like Memorial Day, Labor Day, the last week of the year that's usually the office is closed and we have it off, and not have to take my quote unquote PTO, but still get a lot more travel in 2024.
It's a good strategy, great strategy. As a nurse and a per diem nurse, I actually don't get any PTO, but I can stack my shifts to work, 5 or 6 shifts in a row and then get 6 to 8 days off in a row. So that's my strategy. There's oftentimes people ask, oh, what are you doing for this next week? And I'm like, I literally have a week off just because like my shift's stacked that way and I could just take vacation without having to take like work days off.
Yeah, and Brittany, you're really fortunate that you're able to do that just because you are per diem. Kim hit upon a really good point. And again, something that we've always talked about in earlier episodes, and I don't want to say we strayed away from, but we just don't hammer the point on home so much anymore about utilizing certain vacations and holiday weekends, kind of like how you mentioned, Kim. But that's a really good strategy. And I'm already seeing like Instagrams and TikToks talking about, utilize and get the most out of travel by booking on these holiday weekends. This is how many days off you can actually get because maybe it's a Friday and a Monday off with it too, or that's a Friday or a Monday, etc. You get the idea, right? I'm already seeing that on social media talking about it. And they are very practical tips to get yourself those few extra days without having to take that PTO.
That's killer.
But definitely want to dive into the episode. In this past year in 2023, we went to 7 new countries amongst the 3 of us. We went to Morocco, Spain, Germany, Austria, Canada, the United Kingdom, and Greece.
We also went to 8 national parks, 3 in the US, 5 international. Grand Canyon, Redwoods National Park, Big Bend National Park, Banff, Yoho, Jasper, Kootenay, and
Berchtesgaden.
Or is it Berchtesgaden? I don't know. It's German. None of us are proficient in German, but you get the idea. In the Bavarian Alps, Berchtesgaden. It was beautiful. And of course, we're going to touch upon that later on in the episode. Minus the countries and the national parks, 15 different states. I hate to say this one first because we're in California, but not anymore for you, Kim, right? So California is added onto that list. Oregon, Utah, Arizona, Georgia, Tennessee, Florida, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri, New York, and of course, Nevada. Who can't fit in a Vegas run in the year? You got to fit in a Vegas run, and we definitely.
One, actually, we're missing 16 states. I also went to Louisiana last year.
Oh, well, look at that. Well, we have one more for the list that we missed. So good catch on that, Kim. 16. Sweet 16.
So we started January of 2023 with our first trip to Morocco. We did 8 days with Gate One. We invited our friends Kasia and Ryan, and we went to Marrakesh, Fez, Rabat, and Casablanca while we were there. We saw so many markets in Medinas, but my favorite part of Morocco was the architecture. It was so beautiful.
I would have to say that was probably my favorite thing about Morocco too, was just seeing that architecture that Morocco is famous for. They're kind of like mosaic tile designs, bright, beautiful colors. And I will say this, Kim, you were sorely missed on that because we went to some ancient Roman ruins that still have mosaic, authentic tile floors there. And I know it would have gotten the juices flowing. It was kind of cold out there around that time, but it would have warmed up a little bit for you, I'm pretty sure, seeing those ancient Roman ruins.
I'm already warmed up just hearing about it.
But I just want to say, again, Brittany mentioned this was a Gate One adventure. Again, always non-sponsored with Gate One at this point in time. We're hoping that will change soon. But we love Gate One and have never really had a bad experience with them. We've had several squatties reach out to us, tell us that they've booked trips with Gate One, hearing us talking about it. And for anyone who's kind of timid, or there's this one country they want to go to but don't want to do it alone, or don't know how to start the trip planning process, guided tours, we've said this, are so underrated. Give it a chance. We're hyping up Gate One here. We did Morocco, but definitely a whole plethora of places all over the world for you to go with Gate One, and you guys should check it out. Take a look.
Gate One sends out a deals newsletter, and it came in this past week, and there was an Egypt deal on there, and I think they'd had like $500 or $600 off of the booking price. And Gate One's cool too because it's flights, hotels, excursions, food, Nile River cruise for 3 days too. I was very close to booking it for 2024, but I held myself back just because of the dates. They weren't exactly lining up with my schedule.
Yeah, it's a great deal. I have my eye on that one as well.
But we'll have to make Egypt's squad trip with Gate One. Let's make a pact right now. That's squad trip for sure.
All right. It has to be 2025 then, because I'm getting a little antsy over here.
Well, that's fine because we're booked up in 2024. So you know what? It has to be 2025. But that was us in January. Did you have anything in January, Kim?
You know, looking back, I did not do any travel in January. In February, I did. I went to New Orleans for Mardi Gras, which was such a good time. It was just a couple of hours. New Orleans is pretty close to Austin flight-wise, so it's a quick flight. Thought, why not? Great surprise that it happened to be on Mardi Gras season, and it was so much fun. We're actually going to have an episode coming out very soon for you all if you're trying to plan a trip for Mardi Gras as well. It's a great time. It was a very quick trip, just a couple days in and out. Ate my weight in red beans and rice, went to the parades, went out and enjoyed the nightlife as you do in New Orleans, and just had a really good time there. It was a perfect amount of time to be in New Orleans.
We're actually headed to New Orleans ourselves this upcoming February. So hearing all about your trip on that episode, definitely inspired us. We have a lot of cool things planned. But in February of 2023, we actually went to Florida. We were actually supposed to go to Crystal River and do a tour where you get to snorkel with the manatees. However, there was too much rain and there was a storm that came in, so our tour was actually canceled. So instead, we did a day trip to St. Augustine. We went to Venice Beach to visit our friends Bob and Lorraine, and we spent one day at Epcot at Disney World. So we definitely made up for our time there.
We need to go back to Florida because I was so disappointed that we weren't going to be able to swim with the manatees. As a matter of fact, when we were taking off from the San Diego airport here, I don't know if people really pay attention to this, but Frontier Airlines, we did not fly them, but Frontier Airlines on their tail of the plane always has a random animal, right? That's kind of their thing that they have on their livery. And as we were taking off, Frontier Airlines, we saw the manatee on the livery as we were going to Florida. And I was like, oh yeah, this is a good sign. And I guess it was a bad sign for them to say, you're going to maybe have to come back because it rained us out. The water was too choppy. We couldn't go. But nevertheless, you got to make the best when things happen when you're on vacation. So luckily we had our friends, Bob and Lorraine. They have a place in Florida. They happened to be there. We met them on our Uganda trip, got to spend time with them, did that pivot to St. Augustine. And who doesn't love a Disney trip? We checked out Epcot and had a really, really good time. But Crystal River, you are still on the radar, maybe in 2024. Don't know quite yet to get back out there to see those manatees.
You say Crystal River. What is the nearest big city in Florida that I would recognize?
Probably Tampa.
Oh, okay. Tampa. Interesting. I'm eyeing potentially going to Florida in Q1 next year. So that could be a time to redeem yourselves.
Oh, that could be a time. And as a matter of fact, I think we did it in February for a particular reason. Isn't that one of the best times, actually?
Yeah. So winter months are the best times to see the manatees because they don't like the cold water. And so in the springs, it stays a little bit warmer. In the ocean, it's a bit colder. So in the winter months, they stay in the springs, the Crystal River, because it's warmer in that area. So the best time to see them is like November through March.
Okay. Just planting that seed there.
Yeah.
This is a good time to mention that we have several travel itineraries for you squatties because we've had so many requests for us to send our exact trips for y'all to replicate.
We actually have several international trip itineraries. We have Japan, Banff, and Spain. And on top of the itineraries, we already have for U.S. trips like Kauai, the U.S. Virgin Islands, and we have a bunch of national park trip itineraries as well, including Utah's Mighty Five National Parks and a week in Grand Tetons and Yellowstone.
Each one of our itineraries is 20 to 30 pages in an instant downloadable PDF guide that tells you where to fly into, the exact route to take, where to stay, park entrance prices, where to eat, driving distances between attractions, the things to see and do, and even hikes we recommend, their mileage, time to allot for each one, and so much more.
We'll link to our itineraries page in the show notes, so if you're interested, you can check it out there. In March, I also didn't do any travel. I did stay back in Austin quite a bit, but there was one big event that happens in March out here called South by Southwest. Maybe some of you have heard of it. Maybe some of you have not, but it is a massive 10-day, essentially takeover of the city. It's a festival, it's a conference, it's pop-ups, it's basically a citywide gathering of the mind / party. It is so much fun. I highly recommend coming to Austin for that time of year. It's 2 weekends and then the weekend between and a couple days, leading up to the first weekend. It's such a good time. There's music artists, there's comedy shows, there's intellectual talks, there's technology introductions, there's launches of different things. There's a ton of really cool famous people that are in town too, so good for celeb spotting. And the coolest thing about it is that all around the city, different bars, restaurants, and venues will open their doors and kind of latch on to the conference. So they're not necessarily on the paid itinerary for South by Southwest, but brands have pop-ups, there's free shows, there's free comedy, there's so much free stuff to do around the city. It's a great way to experience real Austin, have a really good time, get a ton of free stuff, and just have a really good time. We are going to put out an episode on it because it is this massive event. There's a lot of confusion around the information. Do you need to pay? Do you not need to pay? all of that. So stay tuned. We're going to have a deep dive episode on South by Southwest coming very soon.
Awesome. I look forward to that episode. And maybe one day Jamal and I will come meet you out there for the event. But this past March, we actually did a weekend trip to Monument Valley and the Grand Canyon. We actually went with Jamal's sister, Najwa. The landscape in Monument Valley is so beautiful already, but it is exemplified at sunrise and sunset. Sunrise was my absolute favorite. We actually didn't, there's like a loop that goes through the formation. So we didn't actually get to go on that loop because there was a marathon in town. So we'd love to go back. But we also went to the Grand Canyon on this trip because Najwa had never gone before. And we did a sunrise there and it was so beautiful. There was also a freak snowstorm that had happened. And so it was dusted with snow and it made it even more beautiful than we were even anticipating.
You know, this was our second time in the Grand Canyon, and each time we've gone has actually been in winter when there's been snow. One of them was a true OG squad trip with you, Kim, and Zaina. And then now I got to experience the Grand Canyon again with my other sister, Najwa, who was an honorary squaddie on that trip with us. And everybody knows the Grand Canyon, but everybody might not know what Monument Valley is when Brittany says that. And I guarantee you may not know it by name, but you know it by sight. So many Western movies are filmed out there just because of its rugged, beautiful landscape. And it's the famous area where Forrest Gump goes on his run and he finally stops in the middle of the road and says, I think I'm going to go home now, or however he says, or whatever he says, and turns around. And it's that just big, beautiful desert backdrop with the amazing rock formations. And to really see that, you know, when Brittany told us we were going on that trip, I was like, I don't really care to go see desert formations. You know, I'd rather see it in a national park setting. Mm-hmm. But I was like, I'm game for the ride. But when I was there, my mind was just like so blown away with like, wow, it really is beautiful out here. And I do want to go back because it was so beautiful. And two, like she said, they had the marathon going on. And it's actually on Native American land. I forgot what tribe it is a part of, but they were having a marathon. And that's why the hike and trail we were going to do was closed. So all the more reason to go back.
It sounds wonderful. Pictures looked amazing.
Yeah, it was a really good time. And then in April, we did an 8-day trip to Spain. We went to Barcelona, Madrid, and Toledo. The food there in Spain is top notch. Tapas, sangria, wine, amazing, delicious. If you haven't been to Spain, it's a great trip to just like kind of leisurely do and just eat your way across the country and the cities.
What was your favorite tapas you had in Spain?
Favorite tapas? Oh my gosh. Well, I would have to say our favorite was the Bravas potatoes. They're just these nice fried golden potatoes, kind of like in cubes. They have some sort of, what would you describe it? Like a red chili sauce on top.
Yeah.
And it was like this garlic aioli. It was so good. And that is so common. Just the Bravas at any tapas place will have it. Some are better than the others. I will say that, but they're always pretty good. But ironically enough, when we were in Spain, our old roommate, Rachel, and her now fiance, Brett, happened to be there. So we didn't travel with them, but we met up with them while they were there. And they wanted to go to this one restaurant. The name escapes me, but of course it is mentioned in our Barcelona episode. But there was actually a foie gras tuna, wasn't there, that we got? This was a really fancy tapas situation, right? Normally tapas is very inexpensive. This was a fancy one, but well worth it. That one was actually probably my favorite. But in just generalities experience, the Bravas were top notch.
We actually made a itinerary for Spain the 8 days that we went. So definitely check it out on our website. We have everything laid out. The airports we flew into, what we did each day, what attractions we went to, how much they cost, links to the websites that we booked on, and how we transported from Barcelona to Madrid and Toledo and back to the U.S. again.
Before we move on from Spain, I just want to give a big shout out to it. I really enjoyed it a lot for several reasons. One, it is on the euro, and countries that are on the euro tend to be a little bit more expensive, but Spain is known for being actually relatively inexpensive when it comes to food, lodging, and other things. So you're going to get more bang for your buck when you go to Spain. And I don't want to say that there's not things to see, because there definitely are. But as we were really planning the trip, we really found out like a lot of the stuff to do is just kind of walk around, roam, eat here and there, have a casual drink here and there, you know, and I really kind of liked that leisurely pace. So I feel like Spain is a really awesome European country to go to get the most bang for your buck and really kind of see a lot of the cool architecture and things, but really at a leisurely not pace that's not go, go, go.
I love trips like that. Just mosey around, see beautiful things, have a sangria, eat some food. Amazing.
Yeah. Spain was amazing for sure.
In April, we also went to Texas. We flew into Dallas to see my sister for Easter, but we did fly in a day early to do a day trip to Oklahoma. That marked off our 38th state in the U.S. So we went to Oklahoma City and knocked off that state, since we did not count the one time that we went to Hot Springs, Arkansas and drove that tiny corner through Oklahoma.
Oh, I count it. We saw Gasquatch. It counts. So what was your highlight of Oklahoma City?
So there is a botanical garden that we went to. The botanical garden was really cool. And then we also went to this famous gas station called Pops, and they have a ton of different flavored sodas that you can try or buy. And they have like a little diner in there. So we ate there, got a cool flavored soda, brought some home. It was just a cool experience.
Very nice. Get that 30th state. So moving into May, I was surprised to learn out here in Austin and Texas that it's very wet. It rains a lot in May. And so, you know, in hindsight, now that I think about May 2024, I probably will try to get out of town. May 2023, I didn't do too much. I did go to Houston. One of the things about living out here in Austin that I have set out to do is to explore the neighboring areas, anything within a 5-mile driving distance or maybe even more. I want to see it while I live here, right? So got to check out Houston. Didn't really have an itinerary necessarily, but it just so happened that it was torrentially downpouring this entire weekend, but I didn't want to cancel the trip. So just like that one time we drove Highway 1 during one of the worst storms to hit California in years, this was one of the scariest 3-hour drives to Houston. Luckily, I wasn't driving, but it was so rainy. Like, we should not have been driving. We shouldn't have even gone on this trip, but we made the most of it, right? We saw everything that we could do in Houston, given that it's raining and given that a lot of the things that were on my list to do were outside. Made the most of it, though. Saw some local restaurants, some local parks with what we can do. Saw the nightlife a little bit and stayed in a really cool hotel, Hotel Zaza, which is in Houston and Austin. It's a really, really cute boutique hotel. They had champagne and chocolate-covered strawberries waiting for us. Squad tip, tell them it's your anniversary always, and you will get hooked up with free perks. They even came by after we checked in, knocked on the door, and brought bottles of water and moon pies randomly. So really the hotel was one of the highlights of that trip to Houston.
That's nice. I mean, even though it is outside of Austin, to some degree, of course, it is a little bit of a staycation or even exploring your own backyard, right? It's within your own state. You know, we were able to drive, not necessarily too far. And in May, we kind of did the same thing. We just stayed local. We did some local hikes. We did the San Diego Japanese Tea Garden, because what we did not mention is when we were in Oklahoma City in April, that garden that we had actually gone to, they had an entrance cost, of course, but then I forgot the name of the pass, but basically there's like a U.S. horticultural society that you could buy an annual pass for, and it gets you into so many different, you know, gardens throughout the U.S., and they have several here locally in San Diego. Well, the Japanese Tea Garden is one of them, so we're like, well, let's just put our pass to use, and all our years living here in San Diego, over 10 plus years now, never gone to the Japanese Tea Garden in Balboa Park, so we're like, let's go do that. And then, you know, me being the big roller coaster buff that I am, I told Brittany, I was like, we got to get Six Flags Magic Mountain season passes. It's been a while. I got like a hankering for some coasters. And so we made a little day trip to Magic Mountain. And I think I sold Brittany on it because we love Indian food. And right by Magic Mountain, there's this bomb Indian place that we always like to stop in when we're driving through LA to Northern California. And kind of tied our May all together. That really did.
What's it called? Shout them out.
Well, the shout out goes to Royal Tandoor. And so Royal Tandoor is super good. If you're there on a Monday through Friday during lunch hours, they actually have a very reasonably priced buffet. But at dinner time, of course, they don't have that. So then it's order like a la carte. And then, Indian food is almost kind of like Chinese food for dinner, with the Lazy Susans. Not that they have the Lazy Susans, but point being, it's a shared meal. You buy several things for the table and kind of share. So really, really good. But if any of our squaddies are listening and wants to go to Royal Tandoor in Santa Clarita in Los Angeles area, food, fire. I will say this, service a little lacking and slow. So just be prepared. If you really think it's going to be like 45 minutes in and out, plan for like an hour and a half, maybe 2. But I'll tell you what, the food is so good, it's actually kind of worth it.
I like a slow meal every now and then.
So moving into June, we actually had our squad trip. Heck yes.
Squad trip? What?
We went to Canada. Jamal and I were there for 8 days. Kim was there for about 6. And we covered Banff, Yoho, Jasper, Kootenay, and we had our honorary squad member, Charlotte, with us.
This was such a well-anticipated trip. We've been talking about going to Banff for so long, and I'm just so happy that we did. It was a great trip. The lakes were gorgeous, turquoise, the forest, the hikes, playing cards in our beautiful mountain front cabin that one night. Like, everything was really, really nice here, and I don't think there's anything I would have changed about this trip. It was just absolutely beautiful.
The maple fudge. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I burnt myself out on maple fudge. I didn't finish what I bought, and I can't even look at it anymore.
I think I was the first one to buy the maple fudge as a surprise for you ladies, so I want to take credit for that. I had to leave the restaurant to go do something. I forgot what it was. Maybe it was repay for parking or do something. I really can't remember.
Get an ornament.
Oh, get the ornament. That's right. Thank you for that reminder, Kim. But then I passed this one place. It wasn't even a chocolate shop. It was like a souvenir, and they said maple fudge or fudge inside. And I was like, all right, well, let me peep this. Bomb maple fudge. So when we were playing cards outside of our little cabin on the deck overlooking the mountains at sunset with our glass of wine, all 4 of us playing, and then we have some maple fudge for dessert, it was quite the experience, not to mention just the natural beauty, the hikes, everything around there was really, really nice. And if you guys are interested in Banff, not only was it just Banff, Banff is the major famous one that everybody knows in the Canadian Rockies National Park, but there are so many national parks all around that touch. And if they don't touch, they're only like a few miles apart. So there's Yoho, Jasper, Kootenay. Brittany mentioned that, earlier, but I want to reiterate that. We have an itinerary for that. We shouted out our itineraries earlier, but we have one of our newest ones here for a very popular trip that lots of people and nature lovers take to Banff and Jasper National Parks. So be sure to check them out on our website, travelsquadpodcast.com, if you are interested in this trip.
I think this is probably one of our most useful itineraries because the nature of this trip is very much road trip-esque. You're starting at the very north end in Jasper, working your way down, doing these experiences and stays along the way. And to have a guide that takes you through the map of the route and all the stops along the way, I think we could have got a lot of use out of that if we had found something like that before going on this trip. So we're just passing on all our learnings to you all and really pushing for you to go to Jasper. A lot of people forget about it because it's so far north, but I think Jasper really was one of the highlights of the trip.
I loved Jasper a lot. I think so just as well. And shout out, they have a really awesome local brewery. So after a day of hiking in the park, come get your brews. It's delicious. Loved it.
Yeah, that was such a great trip. But also in June, Jamal and I did a weekend trip to the Redwoods National Park up in Northern California. We hiked the James Irvine Trail to Fern Canyon, which are both a popular trail and popular area in the park. We also went up to Brookings, Oregon to see the natural bridges. It was just a really beautiful coastal weekend that we enjoyed in Northern California.
That sounds wonderful.
Yeah, so this was our second time in Redwoods National Park. Brittany was really hard on going here because she really wanted to do the Fern Canyon Trail. And you actually need to have a permit for that if you are going to park in the parking lot that's really close. But we did not have a permit for that. So we actually had to do a longer trail that met up, what was it, like 12 miles round trip?
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, it didn't feel like 12 miles. There's incline, but I didn't feel like there was a lot. And I just want to say, we've talked about before, like when we're in Sequoia National Park, you're just in wonder of how tall and big these trees are, because sequoia are the largest trees because they have the girth to them, right? But sequoias are also redwoods, but these redwoods here, they still have girth, not as much, but they have a little bit more length to them and height. And let me tell you something, just walking through the forest, seeing those trees, having the ground being littered with ferns, it's just this really unique forest environment that you really don't get anywhere else. And I loved being out there. And that's not even just going up into Oregon along the Pacific coast. So scenic and beautiful out there just as well. They touch right by each other. So definitely a great weekend trip to do is heading into that northern region of Northern California, Southern Oregon.
I really need to get back up there to do this one. I've done Fern Canyon, come to find out. I'd love to spend more time in the Redwood National Park, though, and really take it in.
Yeah, it's so beautiful.
So in June, almost right after our Canada trip, I had another trip planned. It was my cousin's wedding up in Lake Gregory, which is in Southern California, just a couple hours driving from San Diego. So I kind of made it a twofer, had a little family time in Lake Gregory with an Airbnb cabin in the woods. The wedding was beautiful. And then went back down to San Diego, had a great motel, actually, oceanfront motel in Pacific Beach, San Diego, which was a really great place to stay. Got to see you all, do a little podcasting, got some beach time in. I really missed that out here in Texas. And it was a good little balance of a trip. Got some hometown love and some family time in there.
Oh, that's always good. So before we dive into July, we're going to take a quick little detour and talk about one of our favorite travel products, Liquid IV. Liquid IV keeps us hydrated while we're flying and traveling.
It's full of electrolytes and hydrates you 2 times faster than water alone. We use them while flying, when feeling jet lagged, or after a long hike or night out in a new city, partying it up on a rooftop bar. They're super easy to carry and keep stocked in your suitcase, carry-on, day pack, or purse.
Liquid IV comes in regular or my favorite sugar-free flavors. Our favorites are the tangerine with immune support, sugar-free peach, and sugar-free lemon lime. You squaddies can get 20% off when you go to liquidiv.com and use our promo code, that's Travel Squad Podcast promo code, at checkout.
We actually just had Liquid IV this past weekend on our last trip, so love Liquid IV.
I just had one today. It's winter. We're dehydrated.
So what did you do in July, Kim?
July, I went to New York City. It was for Louis' birthday trip, his 30th birthday, so had to go up and go big, It was a great trip. We only were planning to stay 2 nights. Because of weather, it ended up being 3 nights, but we made the most out of it and it ended up being really, really fun. So we did a boat cruise that was unlimited mimosas, breakfast buffet, got to see the Statue of Liberty up close and personal on that boat. That was like the epic highlight of the trip. We stayed in the New Yorker Hotel right by the Madison Square Garden, so super close to Times Square and all that riffraff that goes on in Manhattan of New York City. Went to the Edge rooftop, got a great aerial view of the city, went to the iconic Comedy Cellar comedy show. It was a really good trip. And only my second trip to New York and completely different than what I did the first time.
We recently had an episode, our second episode on New York, where you talked a little bit more about this trip. Hearing you talk about it now, and even when we recorded and listening to that episode when it came out a few weeks ago, it got me really inspired to go back to New York, because my only time being to New York was after our 2-week-long, or I think it was even longer than 2 weeks, maybe 16 days when we first went to Africa, and we had stopped in New York and it was on a Friday. So we're like, well, why would we be going home? Let's make a weekend trip out of it. And so we tried to pack everything in and we're just so tired from a long one. And I enjoy New York, but I need to go back to be like, I'm really just going to go to New York. And I don't know why we haven't done that yet. It's such a big, iconic American city and we're going to need to do that. So really, really excited and motivated hearing you talking about it again for when you went in July. But in July, it's also my birthday month. And we celebrated my birthday by taking a little Vegas vacation a little bit for a weekend stay.
Yeah, we actually, back in 2022, my brother got married in Vegas and we sat through a timeshare presentation and they gave us a free week stay in Vegas to use within the next year. And we go to Vegas all the time. So we kind of just sat there and then we got an alert saying that the deal was going to be expiring. And we're like, all right, let's make this work. So we went for a long weekend. We did Vegas on a budget. So we got the free stay from the timeshare presentation. And we got $150 from sitting through one of the presentations while we were there. We also ate off strip this time, which saves a ton of money. But they have some really, really great eats off strip. We went to a restaurant called Wolf and Sparrow, which was so delicious. They had so many great options. We went to a new noodle place and a sushi spot, and we just explored Vegas more like locals, I would say, and it was a wonderful trip.
No pool parties? No Hakkasan?
Well, we did hit up Hakkasan, but no pool parties.
No pool parties this time, that's for sure. But I want to reiterate what the food scene is like in Vegas right now off strip. Everybody thinks strip because, of course, that's where all the hotels. And yeah, you're going to find like the celebrity chefs and maybe the Michelin-starred restaurants on there. But there is high quality eats off strip in the local areas now. There is so many Instagram, Facebook pages, TikToks that are dedicated to eating off strip. And we found quite a few of them from those, went and tried them out, and they did not disappoint. So anybody who wants to go to Vegas, I'll tell you what, eat at that famous celebrity chef restaurant if you want. We do it too, but definitely spend a little bit more time looking into food off strip because you won't be disappointed. Their game is up there right now.
So in August, we took an anniversary trip, Jamal and I, and we ended up going to Philadelphia. It was our first time together there. And then we headed over to New Jersey to hit up the shore and Cape May. We were able to meet up with some squatties, Ryan and Bree, while we were in Philly, and we spent the day with them. We ate Philly cheesesteaks, saw the Liberty Bell and Independence Hall with them.
Oh, I wish I was there to meet them.
I know. Well, it was so nice meeting Ryan and Bree. As soon as they saw on our Instagram post, like, hey, we're going out there, any recommendations? Ryan immediately messaged us and be like, I live in the area, would love to do a little meetup. So that was really, really so nice. And at that point in time, we were already knowing that we're going to be doing, and we're going to touch upon this a little bit later in the episode too, but that we're having our West Virginia meetup at New River Gorge National Park. And they were talking about being really, really excited to potentially come. So Ryan and Bree, I know you're listening. I'm counting on you guys to come. So you better be coming on that one. But yeah, they showed us what the locals do as we toured Independence Hall. They took us to this really great market. We got some cheesesteaks and just got to spend time with them a little bit. But from there, Philadelphia is right on the border with New Jersey, right? You just look across the river and, oh, all of a sudden there's New Jersey, right? So not too far of a drive to the Jersey Shore. And our friends Bob and Lorraine, who we mentioned we met up with in Florida, well, guess what? They have a place in New Jersey as well, just on the shore. And we ended up meeting up with them and they hosted us and it was a great experience.
So Bob and Lorraine, they had this cute little beach cottage. It's 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, and they invited us to stay with them. And it's walking distance right to the beach. They actually live in a really great spot because like 3 blocks away is the beach, and then the 3 blocks in the other direction is the bay. So they have the best of both worlds. So we spent 2 days with them there. It was really nice to catch up with them. We saw them last in February, and they showed us everything we need to see in the shore. We saw the Jersey Shore house and had a great time. They took us to some really great eats while we were there. And from Jersey Shore, we went down to Cape May, New Jersey. And I have a friend, an old coworker. Her name's Ro, and her husband, Eric. They run the Mason Inn in Cape May. And it's this huge, beautiful, old, historic Victorian home. It has 10 rooms that are all themed and named differently. And there's like fireplaces in most of the rooms, and it's just Victorian theme. This town was made prior to like the automobile was made. So out front, they actually have like a little stand where you would normally tie your horse. It's just really cute. And we explored Cape May for a day and a half and got to spend some time with them while we were there.
Yeah, so when we stayed at the Mason Inn, this was actually our first bed and breakfast experience. So this is a bed and breakfast. I don't know if you mentioned that earlier. If you did, it just may have glossed over me. But we really loved it. And what made it more exciting is, like Brittany said, in this old Victorian home. But if you haven't heard of Cape May, it kind of has the notoriety of being the first beach location vacation place in the United States. So all of the elite aristocrats back in the day along the East Coast, this is where they would go vacation, and all the rich people. So it has its own storied history, but all the homes are really beautiful, Victorian style, and just a great experience overall to kind of really give you a different vibe of New Jersey than the stereotypical that you would expect.
That's great. You got a whole bunch of stuff in that one trip.
Yeah, it was 5 days and we really packed it all in and it was great. I really enjoyed it. So then in September, I told Jamal that we needed to head off state number 39. So we went to Kansas City because we had never gone to Kansas before. We did do both sides of Kansas City, the Kansas side as well as the Missouri side. And of course, we had to try Kansas City barbecue while we were there.
Kansas City barbecue did not disappoint. I'll tell you what, their sauce game is pretty good. And the ribs delicious also. But Brittany and I are brisket people, and nobody does brisket like your home state now, Texas, Kim. So I will say that. But we really loved our Kansas City barbecue experience. We went to several places. Probably our favorite, I would say, would be Slaps. When we went to Slaps, the ribs just fall off the bone. I know how particular you are about your ribs, Kim.
Yeah.
I love these ones right here. Like Brittany said, state number 39. So we went to a few barbecue spots. 2 of them were actually in the state of Kansas, just over the river right there. Only one of them in Missouri. But we took a day trip to Topeka too, because we said to ourselves, we got to go to the capital because that's the next biggest city that was close to us. And even though, yes, we were in Kansas, do we really count crossing the river to get to the other side and being maybe no more than a mile or 2 in, hitting off another state? Yes, it counts. But, you know, we just had to venture a little bit deeper.
What was the other state?
Kansas.
Oh, because you'd kind of been there before, but you didn't count it.
We have never been to Kansas before, but we've been to Missouri, but a different part of Missouri. So Kansas City is in Missouri as well as Kansas.
But the bigger side of Kansas City is actually in Missouri.
So we had to drive a little deeper into Kansas.
Got it.
But in Kansas City, they actually have a pretty lively downtown. They actually have this bar called Up Down KC, and they have a lot of video games that you can play at a really cheap price. I think everything was what?
Everything was a quarter.
A quarter for a whole bunch of like arcade games and stuff. So there's 2 stories, plenty of things to do. We also went to a bar called Pawn and Pint. They have like 2,000 games, so you can bring your own food or snacks, but then you have to order drinks there, and then you can play any of the games. So it's fun to go it would be really fun to go as a group and play a game there. They have a ton of space, and they had a great brewery called Boulevard Brewing while we were there that had a ton of sours. I love sours, had a lot of great flavors, so we checked that out as well. So overall, I wouldn't say Kansas City is my favorite city, but I was more impressed than I thought I was going to be.
Well, that's good to know if I'm ever there for like work or something.
Yeah.
So in September, this was my big travel month. I'd been looking forward to my trip to Greece for several months. And I think that's probably why maybe I didn't do as much travel, because I was really banking on this one big trip. And it really was one of the best trips I've ever had. I would even be kind of willing to say it's the #1 best trip I've ever been on. I know. I usually say Thailand, Italy, Greece, but I really think Greece is going to take the top spot because it is the epitome of a European summer vacation. It has everything you see in the movies. It's beautiful. They have ancient ruins. The vibes are amazing. The nightlife is amazing. The beaches are gorgeous. The parties are fun. the day clubs, the beach clubs. Oh my gosh. So we went to Athens, Mykonos, and Santorini. In Santorini, we stayed the longest, and we also stayed in a luxury caldera front, gorgeous property with a personal hot tub on our balcony. It was just everything I'd been dreaming of and everything I had planned for about a year leading up to it. We went on a luxury catamaran that had like a 5-course meal, unlimited drinks. I really would actually go back to Greece in 2024. I loved it that much.
Whoa, big bold statement. Just like you said one earlier, coming in like again with it. Loved it that much. Well, I'm glad you did. You know, I remember for a while, Kim, you were really hard on Squad Trip Greece. And you guys said that I was being a downer on. I wasn't being a downer, just wasn't super hard for me to be like priority. And as much as I know any trip that we take together, we all enjoy, I'm almost glad that we didn't, because I know you enjoyed your Greece experience in a different way that you wouldn't have if we had it be a squad trip. So in that sense, I'm actually really, really thankful for it. So maybe your next trip to Greece, if it's okay, we'll tag along and then you can show us the ropes, and then yeah, we'll just definitely go from there.
I think Greece is a great destination for couples. Obviously, it's very romantic, but I also think it's a great girls' trip destination.
Mm-hmm. I could see that, definitely. You also got a little bonus add-on with London.
Yeah, so we ended up saving somewhere around $600 just by adding a about 24-hour stopover in London on the way back. So, you know, we got to see Big Ben and the London Eye and Westminster Abbey and walk around. The gorgeous architecture there is really cool to look at. The cars there, there's some like old British cars that were pretty cool to see driving around. And then that is where my love for bangers and mash started.
Bangers and mash. I could
So
see
good.
that.
Went to a traditional London pub, had bangers and mash to end the night before getting on the flight back home. And I've been thinking about it ever since.
So speaking of the flight back home, I have to ask, how was your airport experience at London Heathrow, Kim? Because we've talked about this on the podcast before about how we hate traveling through that airport.
Ugh.
You have bullshit to deal with.
So I knew that they have this stupid rule that you have to take all your toiletries out of its bags and put them in this one specific plastic bag that they provide. They're very strict on that. And so we had already come through London on the way into Greece and kind of had to deal with like stopping, taking all our shit out and everything. So on the way home, we actually checked our bags, put all of our toiletries in there. And then anything else that we had, I'd save the bag, thanks to a tip from Brittany, and had pre-put everything in that small bag that we did have left over.
Well, at least it made it a little bit more smooth just having known the experience. But if you don't know and have never flown through London, yeah, just keep that in mind. It's their rules on liquids is completely different, and they give you a specific bag that it has to fit in. If it goes over and doesn't fit all into that bag, then you're kind of screwed and they give you a hard time. So just
Brittany was this close to getting put on the no-fly list in London because of that.
I know.
Brittany definitely was. She was giving them a little bit of attitude, but you know,
They were giving me attitude.
yeah, yes, they were. Yes, they were. But also in September, you know, we took a little weekender to Kansas City, but we also had a big international trip. We went to Germany for Oktoberfest, and what an experience that was. That one was really fun just to be there, kind of in that party vibe, although we didn't really party in that sense. Of course, we went to the Oktoberfest, the tents, did some drinking, but we weren't getting obliterated, right? Because we did some other things while we were there in the city of Munich. And then from there, outside, and when we were done with Oktoberfest, that's where we went to that national park that we're still not sure if we're pronouncing correctly, that we were talking about earlier, Berchtesgaden, in the Bavarian, German Alps. It was just so serene and beautiful, and just a great experience overall out there in Germany.
I loved Berchtesgaden. It was probably my favorite part of the trip. There's a national park there. To get to parts of the hikes that we wanted to do, you actually have to take a boat tour. A lot of great scenic hiking in the Alps. We went to the Eagle's Nest, which was Hitler's old lookout. We took gondola ride, very scenic. We went with some of Jamal's friends, Garrett and Melissa, had a great time with them. And then we also finished off the trip with a day trip to Salzburg in Austria. And we had been there before, but it was their first time going. So it was nice to go back and go to a cafe we had been to before for these amazing apricot dumplings. Oh, they were so good. But we had a great time while we were in Germany and loved it. I would definitely go back again and even experience Oktoberfest again. We just talked a little bit about Greece and Oktoberfest, but those episodes are actually going to be airing later this year. So be sure to stay tuned and subscribe to the podcast so you can hear when those episodes do come out.
Well, not later this year, later next year, because this year's still 2023. Next year around the corner here, 2024.
In October, we got into our fall vibes because one of our squatties had reached out to us offering us a stay in her gorgeous cherry log cabin in Cherry Log, Georgia. And we took her up on that offer, and we're so glad that we did. It was a beautiful cabin with an amazing hot tub that we got a lot of use out of. We had a really, really good time. Just being out in the forest in a cabin is like so centering and so peaceful, and we really liked that. Our friend Robin and her boyfriend Brandon joined us on that trip. We took the drive out to Chattanooga, went to Ruby Falls and Rock City Gardens, and did a little exploration of Blue Ridge and went to a winery and an orchard and went out to dinner, just me and Brittany. So that was a really cool trip, actually.
Yeah, the orchard had really good, there was like handheld fried mini pies, like apple pies, blueberry apple.
So good.
They were so good. And the wine tasting and cider tasting that we did, I think we went overload on apples and, you know, with the cider tasting, the apple fritters, the apple donuts, the apple cider, yeah, everything apple. But that was really cool. And then we did a little stop in Atlanta for lunch. Kim and I, that's where our flights were out of. So had a little lunch stop in Atlanta, walked a little bit of like this belt line and that flew home from there.
And then in November, we have Thanksgiving. So I did go back to Sacramento to visit family. Didn't do any travel or exploration. I kind of wish that I would have gone to Bernie Falls. I know you all have been there and it's not too far. So maybe on my next trip up there. But the one thing I do want to say about this trip is we're getting a ton of warnings that it's going to be an insane travel day. The airports are crazy. Get there early. I was shocked that the airports were not busy at all. I got through TSA in 5 minutes in Austin. And yes, I have TSA pre, but still 5 minutes is insane for the day before Thanksgiving. When I got into Sacramento, the airports were not busy. I was expecting to see like floods of cars backed up, picking up people that are arriving. Nothing like that.
Wow. Good to know. Good to know.
I don't think we've ever really traveled on Thanksgiving except for one time when we went to Texas to have it at Brittany's sister's new house. And I don't remember it being too crowded either, right? You always get those warnings, but usually we host Thanksgiving, so we're not really the ones traveling. So that's actually really good tip to know, especially now if we've experienced that, not too bad. And then Kim, I just feel like it kind of makes sense, but maybe we traveled the day before and people are traveling, you know, a few days before. So, I mean, I guess it could really vary, but to that sense, Kim, you went to Sacramento, we stayed in San Diego. We didn't do much of anything in November because it's a busy time for work for me just as well. So I really tell Brittany kind of like no travel. So we just kept it mellow. Yeah.
And here in December, we actually just got back from a trip. We went to Big Bend National Park. It was National Park number 48 for us. I actually enjoyed it much more than I thought I would. We were out right outside of the park in a ghost town called Terralingua. We popped into Big Bend for a day and a half. We hiked along the Rio Grande into Santa Elena Canyon. We went to the Boquillas Hot Springs. We were able to soak in the hot springs and then immediately get into the Rio Grande to cool off. We did some cool hiking in the park, saw some awesome wildlife as well. We're going to be doing an episode on Big Bend in the upcoming year, and we just had a really great time out there.
Yeah, Big Bend really surprised me a lot more than I really thought it was. And I guess that's something I need to take into every vacation, is just have low expectations. And then you're just going to be like so surprised with it. But I didn't think it was going to be bad, right? But I thought to myself, okay, just like desert landscape, you know, I've seen it before. But it's something really cool about this desert landscape that was different. They have like mountains, all sorts of other wildlife that's kind of really readily available that you can see. A lot of desert wildlife a lot of times are like really hidden. Here they're out and about. something cool about the aspect of it being on the U.S.-Mexico border, with the Rio Grande being the natural division line. And so when we were in those hot springs, the hot springs are on the U.S. side. Brittany mentioned we popped in to cool off in the river itself. But guess what? Just walk right over into Mexico. It's not really regulated. There's no wall. There's no nothing there, And so I was just waiting on the borderline, and that's a cool experience in and of itself. But that ghost town that we were staying in was actually really cool, pleasantly surprised. You would think like, okay, there's not really a big population of people out here, so what are the towns going to look like? And the town was like, okay, what you would expect. But the food scene there was just absolutely incredible, just being catered towards the national park, and people being out there had some really good eats. And I just enjoyed the experience all around. I think if I was to go back to Big Bend National Park, it would just be for that town and the night sky, that the stars were just lit up so beautifully. Because when we were there, we were saying, well, would we come back? And we're like, no. But now that I'm talking about it, I've kind of convinced myself I want to go back right now.
Well, that's good. I'm glad you had a good time out there. Now, one last trip that I have for December that is going to come out, or that I will take after this episode comes out, is back to San Diego. I'm going to go December 23rd through 26th, spend Christmas out there, Christmas on the beach, and see you all, do some podcast recording, some 2024 planning. And I think it's going to be a good way to end the year.
I think so too. I can't wait to see you in San Diego. So we have a lot planned for 2024. We have some just kind of things going on travel-wise, and we'll just kind of quickly go through them. So in January, Jamal and I are flying to Austin to meet up with Kim. We batch record our podcast episodes. So we're going to be doing a day of podcast recording and a day in Fredericksburg or Texas wine country to go wine tasting with Kim and explore Austin a little bit more. We're also at the end of January doing a 6-day Gate 1 trip to Rome. It's an independent tour, so it covered our flights and our hotel, but we don't have a guide, and we're going with our friends Kesha and Ryan. It's going to be a great time. I think total for that trip, we paid $850 a person, and that included our flights and our hotels, and breakfast every day at the hotel.
Nice. January, I'm going to be heading up to Oregon. My flight is in and out of Portland, but I'm actually going to Medford for a friend's baby shower. So I was looking into flights Medford direct versus Portland, which is about a 4-hour drive. And I think I'm going to keep my Portland flights and hit up some waterfalls, some hiking along the way.
That'll be a nice trip. I love the Oregon coast and Oregon in general. It's so green, so lush, has like a moody vibe with the fog. It'll be great. We mentioned it earlier that in February, Jamal and I are going to New Orleans. We haven't been since I was 19. It's been like 14 years since we've been. We're also going to be hitting off states 40 and 41, which are Alabama and Mississippi. We're staying on the Gulf Coast, exploring some of those Gulf Shore towns, and going to Orange Beach, Alabama, and Biloxi, Mississippi. So we're going to have a great time out there.
It just so happens that I am also going to Orange Beach, Alabama. I'm going to stay in a beach house with a friend and her family for a few days, but our schedules are not going to overlap with each other. Unfortunately, we're a couple of weeks off.
That bums me out a lot, Kim, because that's like, I would have just loved for that to be the case. But unfortunately, it is not. But we will be sharing Orange Beach, Alabama stories, that's for sure, on what we were able to do out on the Gulf Coast over there. But in March, we are taking our annual trip to Texas, Dallas specifically, for Easter, because Brittany's sister always hosts that. So we'll be looking forward to family time out in Dallas come March.
In March, I don't have anything solidified yet, but I am talking to a friend about going out to Florida. So still trying to figure out exactly what destinations we would want to go to. But my friend Leah on her squatty is in St. Augustine. Maybe go visit her. I'm also interested in seeing St. Petersburg. Also kind of interested in seeing Delray Beach, which is near Boca Raton. I'm somewhat sort of eyeing it as a potential next city to live in, maybe moving sometime in 2025. So we'll see. We'll see what comes up there.
Don't move around Egypt planning for 2025 time, though, because, we just talked about Egypt 2025. So just don't make that move during Egypt time.
Noted.
In April, we are doing a squad trip. We are going to Costa Rica for 7 days. It's another Gate One independent tour. It was actually pretty affordable. We are each going, Kim's going for like $1,000, and I think Jamal and I are about $1,200 a person. So we're going to be seeing some hot springs, some jungle, possibly some zip lining.
Some volcanoes, yes.
Volcanoes. It's a lot of waterfalls. I can't wait.
And so even though we're all going together as a squad trip, Brittany mentioned different prices. That's because, of course, we are leaving from different cities, right? So that's where the price discrepancy is. But rest assured, they usually always have the same fare from a specific airport that they really have their special. But since we're flying from different ones, we have different costs. But I would still feel for 7 days, flights, hotels, your rental car included, and then you could just go and explore wherever you want. You know, it's so great and so affordable, and you really can't get a deal like that if you were going to do something independent on your own. So we talked about Gate One earlier for guided tours. Check them out for their independent tours also. Really good value.
And it's so much easier than having to book each and every hotel, book your car rental, book your flights. When you just have one booking, and me and Zaina booked together. She's going out of LA. I'm going out of Austin. We had the travel agent custom build us the itinerary and the booking. So literally didn't have to do any work to book this trip and got the best price out there.
What a deal.
In May, I think this might be a pipe dream, but that's when the Kentucky Derby happens, and I would love to go. I don't know if it's going to happen this year, but I'm still keeping it as a potential.
We are potentially eyeing a little road trip of the Dakotas, possibly Badlands, Mount Rushmore, Theodore Roosevelt, and Wind Cave potentially. It's nothing solidified at all in any sort of way, but it's something that we've been kind of chatting about, so may or may not happen. We do already have kind of a lot going on this year, so we'll see.
In June, we have a very exciting first squad trip meetup at the New River Gorge National Park. We're staying at River Expeditions, whitewater rafting, zip lining, just hanging out by the fire. It's going to be so amazing. We have all the details on our website if you want to join that trip. It's actually very affordable. It's going to be very, very fun, and I am so looking forward to it.
I'm really looking forward to it too. Brittany and I have actually been to New River Gorge National Park, done the whitewater rafting. We loved it so much. Really excited to go back there again for this squad and friend meetup. So go to our website, check out the details, be sure to book. You'll see a promo code that's listed on our website. If you do a phone call reservation versus booking through the website, you'll be getting a discount for it. So come on out, meet up with us. We're going to have a really good time out on the river, exploring nature and having a good time.
In July, we are doing 7 days in Iceland. We're focusing mostly on the southern coast of Iceland. Can't wait to go out there. We have a lot of cool hikes planned, excursions on a glacier lagoon. We're going to Diamond Beach, a whole bunch of stuff. Also going, hopefully, into the Blue Lagoon.
Oh, you have to go.
Have to go to Blue Lagoon. So also booking that as well. So we're really excited for our trip to Iceland this July.
How exciting. My family is trying to rope me into a cruise, 7-day cruise in July. It goes from LA to Cabo, Puerto Vallarta, and Mazatlan. And I probably will book it. I'm just hesitating and dragging my feet because I've already done this exact same cruise with Carnival. And so I'm like, do I want to take the exact same trip again? But it's a family trip, so I probably will do it.
Is it also with Carnival again, or is it with a different cruise line?
It is.
Oh, okay. Because I was going to say, if it's with a different cruise line, give it a go because, sometimes you don't even really do much at port. The experience is the cruise. And I was going to say, if it's a different cruise line, it's kind of all going to be the same, but also very different, right? With different amenities, different things. But if it's Carnival, again, I'm not saying don't do family time, but try to convince them to do a different cruise line.
So
that same itinerary, though.
No, I talked to them and I said, okay, I'll do a cruise with you all, but I don't want to go on Carnival because I've already done 2 Carnivals. What do? They book with a travel agent that they're friends with on Carnival. I'm like, you guys.
So they basically said, Kim, we don't want you to come. So what you're saying is your July is fully open.
We'll see.
In August, Jamal and I are planning to go to Black Canyon of the Gunnison. It's another national park in Colorado. That'll be the last of the 4 Colorado national parks that we need to go hit off.
I don't have a lot of travel planned for the back half of the year just yet. September, I know I will be coming to San Diego. My coworker's already notified me of his wedding and an invitation coming in the mail. Another potential event-based travel, I would love to go to New York Fashion Week, and it happens in September. So maybe I'll make that happen, go to another New York City trip, and I want to go to a fashion show. So maybe next year's the year.
It might be for you. In September, we are going to Brazil and Argentina. We're doing a 10-day Gate 1 trip with Kasha and Ryan, our friends. It was Kasha's pick this year because I think I've picked probably the last few years we've gone on trips together. So I specifically said pick where we're going, and she picked Brazil and Argentina. So we're going to do that 10-day trip with her.
Nice. And then November, we have our second Travel Squad podcast trip that we are partnering with another company on. This is a 3-day trip to Napa Valley, and it is going to be a wine trip. Wine tasting, wine dinners, wine bus, maybe if you're that kind of a traveler. We're going to have breakfast buffets, hot springs. It is going to be an epic trip. And we have a promo code for you to get $200 off. So check that out in the show notes, and the links for everything will be there too.
I think on both ends, we really don't have anything planned for December of next year, but I'm sure we'll both think of something.
Yeah, I'm thinking maybe a tropical getaway because it is cold, and I'm in December right now. I'm feeling the cold, and I could see a nice warm tropical getaway being very well received this time next year.
I think Tulum has your name all over it, Kim.
But she's been there.
She has been there, but you know what? That doesn't stop Kim. She's going to go back to New York again for Fashion Week. She's been in New York before, Tulum.
Hey.
I don't know. I feel good vibes for Tulum with Kim right now.
And Tulum is just about to open their own international airport, so you don't have to go through Cancun.
That I heard.
So we have a lot also planned for the podcast next year in 2024. We've recently started sending out newsletters. You can go to our website, and at the bottom, there is a sign up for the newsletters. We release a newsletter about twice a month, I would say, but it keeps you up to date on our most recent trips, episodes, upcoming trips that we have, whole bunch of different info. We also have some different types of newsletters where we're going to be sending out some of our favorite hotels to stay at that are unique stays, some of our favorite trip excursions that we've taken through like Viator or Get Your Guide, and a whole bunch of other things. So be sure to sign up for the newsletter to stay up to date.
We have a lot of merch coming out next year. This year, we really started building some really cool Travel Squad podcast themed merch, but also more seasonal merch like summer's fashion or our most popular Forest Mountain zip up hoodie that's one of our best sellers. So we have a ton more merch designs that are going to be coming out next year and keeping them fresh as the seasons change. We're going to have a ton new episodes as well. Every single one of these places that we mentioned, we're going to be going in 2024, plus all of the other trips that are going to pop up. You can expect new episodes on all of that.
We're also going to be having more itineraries for you guys, both free and for purchase. When we were talking about them earlier, a lot of our itineraries are for purchase for you guys at a really good value to help save you guys from doing all that hassle. But one thing when we talk about the itineraries that we don't hit on a lot is that there are actually free ones up there for you too. So go to our website, check them out, download those ones. Even if you're not going to go, get a little flavor of what they look like. That way for that bigger trip and purchased itineraries what it's actually going to look like. But of course, we plan on bringing more of those your way.
And then you can expect a few more interviews from some really exciting travel industry experts. We have some plans in motion right now, and things always pop up as the year goes on. So if you're interested in being a guest and you have a unique perspective from the travel industry, hit us up at travelsquadpodcast@gmail.com.
Well, I must say, ladies, 2023 has been an epic year of travel, love, friendship, joy, all of the above. I can't wait to see what 2024 brings. I know we kind of teased on it a little bit, but things can change, things could get added, deleted, moved around. So I'm anxious to see what 2024 holds in store for us and for you squaddies travel-wise just as well.
It's always good to reflect on what we did and then really get excited about everything that's coming up because as you can see, it's a lot. Thank you, Squatties, so much for tuning into our episode this week. Make sure to keep the adventures going with us by following us on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok at Travel Squad Podcast. Tag us in your adventures too and send us your questions of the week.
If you found the information of this episode to be useful, or if you thought we were just plain funny, please be sure to share it with a friend that would enjoy it too. And as always, please subscribe, rate and review our podcast, and tune in every Travel Tuesday for new episodes.
Stay tuned for next week's episode. We have more amazing adventures and tips in store for you.
Bye, Squatties.
Bye, Squatties.
Bye.